Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Aquarian Radio. I'm your host, Janet Lessin, and today we have a very special guest, Professor Margaret Rogers Van Coops. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She is known as the voice of the oneness. She's the teacher of mediums, having trained over 20,000 students internationally over the past 20 years. She founded the Samaras Psychic Education Center in Essex, England, and has evolved to establishing Samaras Education Center and Clinic in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And I think that's, she'll tell you what that's near. Her focus is on healing the whole person with her 7 proprietary therapies that remove stress, fear, and pain, along with resolving emotional and mental issues that seem impossible to heal. And she has been awarded 2 PhD degrees for her advanced work in clinical hypnotherapy and integrated medicine. And her credits include her pioneer work and research in the paranormal, psychology, psychiatry, crystal therapies, hypnosis, religious studies. Woo! And she's got this really long vitae. It's on aquarianradio.com. And we're going to go over a lot of very interesting things today. Let me click and bring her on live. Hello, Margaret. Wait 1 second. Sorry, it's going in circles. Okay, now, Margaret, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, and it's lovely to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me.
It's great. Now, you are a little bit low for us. Do you want to turn up something so your volume's a little bit higher, or speak closer into your mic? Oops. Okay. There you're better.
Hang on.
That's perfect.
Let me get better.
That's perfect.
Is that perfect? Good.
Okay.
We got to be perfect.
Great.
We're not allowed to be imperfect, right?
Right. No imperfect people on this show. No. No, we're fine. We can only hope to achieve perfection. I think if we're perfect, we die. So we got to be a little bit not perfect to be in this vibe here. Yes. Yeah. So you sent me a list of subjects, and I'm really excited about all of them. They're listed on our Aquarian Radio site, aquarianradio.com, if you want to follow along, listeners. But the first thing he said is we're going to discuss the cellular-neuro-muscular-memory systems in humans and animals that is controlled by the soul structure coding of the spirit of a being, whether human, animal, or alien. So, wow, that's a lot. Can you unpack that for us and explain that to us?
Well, yes, I can, but it's a very, very big, long subject. And the only people that I will say right now that know this, either people just read my books, which we can talk about later, or my students in Japan, whom I've really trained to very advanced levels of metaphysiotherapy and psychology and psychiatry and all that kind of thing. And so they can actually, because they're very psychic, can read the soul structure coding. So I better explain what that is first.
Yes, please.
Before we come into embodiment, as spiritual entities, we can call ourselves orbs or whatever, it doesn't matter. We are looking down on our ancestors, who are actually our forefathers, if you know what I mean. And we're looking at what they are doing as they each come into embodiment and live. And the bottom line is that as they do whatever they're doing, I'm putting it very simply, I hope, we're looking and watching, and we're going, okay, that's a good step they've made in preparation for me when I arrive 5 generations later. Then we see a 4th person, 4 generations, so we see them and we watch them. And then we see the 3rd one, and then we see the 2nd one, and then we get to Mom, the 1st one. And that's when we bond with her. And here I have to say that cellular-neuromuscular-memory does completely hold within our consciousness, in the deep subconscious part of ourselves, the coding of the DNA of all those ancestors that we've been watching. So if
now,
I put that into...
let me ask you something on that before we get too far, because that's a very interesting scenario that you just... So are you saying that we do not incarnate until 5 generations have gone by? I've interviewed some people that say that they go out and go right back in. So how does that work from your perspective?
Well, now that again is a very big question, because some of us are so ancient old souls that we may not incarnate for thousands of years, because we're busy up in the oneness, in the spiritual level, guiding and directing and helping a whole soul structure idea, i.e. a plan. And so let me say, let's pick a time in history. Let's say it was going to be Alexander the Great. I mean, he didn't just come embodiment and say, okay, I'm going to conquer the whole world. His job was to change the world so that we would all unify and know we all existed. So by these people turning up and conquering, they were actually waking up other nations to the fact that, A, there was a further technology of that time, and B, that they need to appreciate their land more because they hadn't even thought about it as, to appreciate, and C, evolve in some way, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, by doing whatever they're doing. And then let's come forward in time. We all do whatever. We keep reincarnating and doing whatever. And then, hey, there's another whole soul group of people who come down, i.e. Jesus, and we get all this drama going on, and then we go on to another age, a period of whatever time, and now we're in this new age. So to define it, let's go from just Jesus' time to now. We're in the first spiritual awakening age, and now with the shift that everybody calls it, we are moving into the second spiritual age. And where that comes in, it's not about becoming more off to the synagogue or off to the temple or off to the church. This is about our spirit awakening to our divine essence and the connection with all that is, the oneness. So that's where our aliens come in as well, because, we haven't just been humans. As I say to my students, we are biotechnically engineered species. And so, the alien interaction is not just like greys or, people from the far cosmoses that we attune to now, who are now spirit guides and things. We've been incarnated on those other universes and other dimensions. So if, for example, I was a director making a movie and I wanted to have some creature that has some kind of intellect, I might draw and design something with 5 eyes and 2 pointed nuts on their head and whatever. And I think I just invented something. But somewhere in my deep subconscious, I cannot invent something unless my spirit already knows it exists. So
that's a very interesting idea, because my husband, Dr. Lessin, he's a psychotherapist, and he always says, people say, they go, well, I must be making that up, and then he says, well, where do you make it up from? So you just said it in a different way. You can't access it unless, say that again, you can't access it unless it's been a part of your experience. You can't access it
unless it's been part of your soul spirit, which is your spirit self in a form of some shape, where you incarnate wherever it is, and you've had the experience. Or B, you've been in the overview, a sort of spirit guide to whoever it is, whatever dimension they're in. So you're watching it that way. Or C, you are an ascended being in that consciousness where you're in an overview plan of a great change, where you are united with thousands and thousands of other beings, in our case, it's breaking it down to us as humans. So right now, thousands and millions of us are all into peace and harmony, while thousands and millions of us are all into fighting, even yelling at our husbands or whatever right now because of the positions of the planet. And so what we're actually doing is uniting in the sense of having something positive and something negative. And when we have a whole bunch of people down here in the soul group consciousness, it's the divine order of the oneness to preserve the oneness. It needs friction. Just as we need, like if you're sitting at the computer and you're bored out of your mind, you want someone to come along and give you an excuse to not do it and go and play and do something else. And then you might be saying, I'm having a battle in my mind between what I feel and what I think, and I feel guilty, or I feel, I'm going to go off and do something. And so either way, you're creating energy, see. And so the universe sees, if we want to say all of them, into a sense of divine order of the cosmos, must have friction. It must have energy. It must have dark and light. And so we must too. And so, I can sit with you and say, hey, Janet, I don't really agree about this ice cream. It tastes awful. And you're sitting there saying, oh, I love it. It's the best thing in the world. Now, we could argue about that forever and a day. And while we are, we're generating energy, right? So I look at that.
Is what you're saying on some deep level, we are kind of oriented to conflict? Like there's some, we have to have frictions. So we have to have frictions at some point. So we can't have harmony all the time.
No,
and that's
because
our genes.
If we have harmony all the time, in other words, just imagine we all sit down, we all say, hey, it's a lovely day today. Let's all sit here and just go on about how hot it is or how sticky it is, but hey, we can't do anything, so we just sit here and meditate. Sounds good, but how long before we would go, I'm bored. I can't sit here all day. I want to do something else. And the minute you say that, you've created energy. You've spoken, and that's energy, okay, because you're breathing and you're doing stuff, that's energy. You get up, your clothes rustle, and so you're making a noise. That's energy. Your feet go plomp, plomp, plomp across the floor. That is energy, making sound. Then your tummy rumbles because you haven't eaten yet. That is sound. We are the most noisiest people out. And that's why animals know when we're coming.
We're not very quiet.
Because they can not only hear us from miles away because they're developed that in the wild, whereas we haven't. We tend to switch off our hearing if it's too noisy, unless we go to some rock concert, and then I'm sticking wax in my ears because I can't stand it. But just think how much noise there is in this world, and we need it. And it creates, even in a positive way, like we're all having a yay time, we're all laughing and joking. It's energy. And the cosmos needs that, and that's positive. So it's not all negative. Some of the stuff that we do, so if we're meditating, you're generating energy yet again. You do yoga class, you're moving your body, you're moving the air. So life is energy. Everything is energy.
Right.
And we can have all over there a whole group of people all negative. Let's be really bad and say they're bombing the world, like World War I, World War II. It's terrible. We're sitting here and say, how can people do that to people? And now we're looking at people coming around with guns, shooting people who are innocent in a restaurant. It is so bad that we have that in terms of our levels of awareness. Well, our levels of awareness are now coming from the spiritual age. So we're in question mark of it. Whereas if we go back to, Alexander, that I mentioned earlier, his quest.
Yeah, we talked about Alexander.
Yeah, his quest was to conquer the world, not really for, bringing wisdom and knowledge to the world, but because he wanted to find eternal life. That was his quest. Right.
And then he ended up finding his Zeus, his father.
He wanted to be
immortal. He found his father entombed in oils, preserved. He went to, I guess it was Alexandria or something, or somewhere he went and he found his father.
He thought he found his father, Do you hear that? And people went, ooh, oh, oh. But he didn't. He never found the God because he wasn't God in his essence. He was channeling. He was allowing old spiritual entities to come into his body and give him the motivation so he could hear their voices in his head. I'm no different today. I hear spirit talking to me just like you're talking to me now. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a psychic skill. So back then, in those times, he was very, very psychic. And if you think about the people now, I mean, even for my life, let me go back. 1942 was when I was born. By the time I was
Let's
three,
hear about that
healing.
story because that's fascinating. Can you share that with our listeners? How you were born during the bombing? I would like to recount that. Okay.
Yeah, okay. 1942, June the 6th. June the 24th. I was in my mother's womb, and she was in hospital in labor. And apparently I was born at 1:20 our time now, but in the war they put the clocks back 2 hours because of the war. And so it was 3:20 when I was born. And at 3:21 or 2 or 3, that close to me popping out, they were cutting my cord when a V1 bomb dropped literally across the road and wiped out a whole complex of apartments. And the blast was so bad that even the windows in the hospital cracked, apparently. So the nurses were busy either sending home patients who were inmates because they were already in there from prior hurt or whatever, then taking in the wounded. And apparently, according to my mother, a word they use in Britain was hullabaloo. So that's the way she expressed it. After that died down, hullabaloo being all the nonsense and noise and everything that's going on, they heard a baby had been born. So, they wanted to see something beautiful rather than something horrible after all that. So 2 of them, I think my mother said 3, but she made more image about the 2 to me, that they held me. And they said they went from shaking and trembling and stressed and tired to total relaxed sense of inner peace. And the tremblings and things disappeared. And so, according to my mother, I was healing, and I didn't know it, of course. And the V1 bomb, by the way, was a sort of pop, 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 pop motor. So when it stopped pop, popping, as she put it, you knew it was not going to fall on you. It was going to go somewhere further over. So they actually heard that, and they knew it was going to land, but not on the hospital. And then the second one was a V2. Now, the V2 had a different engine, and because of them working with that famous scientist who escapes me right now, it was a fuel engine.
Werner von Braun.
Yeah, that's it. And so those whistled when they came over, and when they stopped the whistle, they went straight down, like jumping off a building. And that time, the second one was when I was 3 years old. My mother took me to the hallway where there's a door and walls and puts her body over the top of mine. And at that point, I had a sense to look over her shoulder, and I saw Archangel Haniel, complete with wings, very tall. As I looked, I didn't know what an angel was at 3 years old. I saw nothing but a being with white hair, white body, and white wings, rather like a swan, I suppose I would say. But I didn't even know what a swan really was. I mean, I'd seen them, but. And then there was this enormous noise, and the next thing I knew, I was out of body as an adult, and I was saying, "There's a baby crying. Where's the baby?" And then the next thing I knew, I was back in my body, and I knew immediately that was me that had been hearing a baby crying, because it was me crying. And so that was my first out of body from shock. And I can remember the smell of the burning, of the explosion. I remember there were cracked little window panes in our window that were on the floor. I remember seeing them. And then I remember the flickering of lights, which obviously was the flames, through those holes. And years later, when I told my mother I could remember it, she said, "Oh my God, you can remember that." She said that was a terrible night. And the memory that I had thereafter was kept alive by the fact that London was not able to rebuild all the bombed out places immediately. So I grew up watching this bombed out building across the road until I got to be around 9, I think, or I don't know exactly. I think I put in my book about 9, 8, 9, something like that. And I was still small. And a man came to pull out some of the boards so he could get in to, I guess, look at the bombed area to see what work needed to be done. And when he came back, I was watching from the third floor, and when he came out, he couldn't get the boards to go back properly. And I'd always had this longing that I had to go in there for some reason. I had to go in there and look at it. Mm-hmm. My mother told me time and time again, I'd mention it, don't, it's dangerous. And you can't go in anyway, boarded up, blah, blah, blah. So here was my chance, and I watched him fiddle, and he got it back as much as he could, and he disappeared. And then I did a no I wasn't supposed to do, which across the main road with traffic, which, by the way, is not like today. Not everybody had cars. And so I went over, and I remember it was enough room for me to go in through the sideways on my side. And I got in, and as I got in, I no longer heard the street noises or the traffic. What I heard was the roar of the bomb explosion. And then I was standing in the flames of the explosion, and standing in the flames with me was Archangel Haniel, the same angel I'd seen earlier, only I didn't know his name yet. And then standing next to him was a man, a woman, and a child. And nobody said a word, but I knew that they had died that night that I could live. And I had this overwhelming feeling that my future was to heal the world. And but it wasn't easy.
Let me unpack that. Wait, you just said something. That's very important. They died that night so that you could live. So are you saying in some way they psychically pulled the bomb over to their building and away from you? What are you saying?
No, I'm saying that Archangel Haniel, the ascended masters that I work with, had made sure that it passed over our building and fell next door. So the angel made the bomb go to the people next door. Did the people next door have any choice in where the bomb went? I'm talking on a different level. No, I never analyzed it as deeply as that. I will say that I just knew instinctively, deep within my being, that I had been protected that night and on my birth, and that it was to make sure I lived, that I would go on to do the work that I've done throughout my life. But I, of course, as a child, only interpreted it the way I just told you, as those people died. That's where I felt it, that I could live.
So when you went through that hole, first of all, back from watching a lot of different shows like Call the Midwife, they had to go through very carefully through the rubble because there could be unexploded munitions, and then you would, they would ignite and kill you. So that was one of the reasons they were very careful. It took them. So they were in this series called The Midwife. They're still tearing apart buildings in the 60s, which was 15 years later. 15, 20 years later. They still had to be very careful. So it was so extensive, the bombing. But before you came in, did you have any memories of where you were before you were born, based on this cellular-neuro-muscular memory system?
Not at that time. No way. I was still a child. All I knew by
then. Do you have it now?
Was of where I was when I'm not quite sure of your question in terms of did I know about?
Do you now know where you were before you came into this human form body? Have you recovered that state that you were talking about, where you're looking down at your, from your ancestors' point, and watching your ancestors?
Yeah,
Have you recovered that point in your own self?
No, I was not aware of it at that time. It became known to me later that I'd watched them when my spirit guides. I was an adult. After I had a breakdown and died, and things like that, then it was all revealed to me. I was able to look at the Akashic records. But earlier what followed after that event was when I was 4 and a half, the war had ended. And my sister wasn't born yet, but there's 4.5 years between us. So I knew my mum was pregnant, but she hadn't arrived. And I was lying on my mother's bed, and there was this horrendous storm, which I loved. I was never afraid of them. I used to look up and watch for the lightning and so on. And I actually went up out of body into the clouds. And then the next thing I knew, I was this 4-year-old standing sucking my thumb, standing on a clearing of grass with trees around. And there were these creoles, which I didn't know the name of course, then, round like pots upside down, before I can explain it, pudding bowl or something. And I was looking at them, and I was amazed. I was really like, my eyes are open wide, because I'm looking at black people, in this area walking about. And then I became aware of someone, standing beside me, and I turned to my right and looked up, and there was a black person, and it turned out to be Zoroaster. And then he said to me, "Hello." He said to me, "Hello, little one," and I'm took my hand, and he took me into one of these, which I now know are called creoles. And we went in, and I sat down, and then some food was given to me. And then the next thing I know, I was an adult talking to him. And I know I was there for 3 days.
Wow.
And him telling me what I was going to do. And I remember looking at him and thinking, I'm going to remember all this. And then the next thing I know, I'm falling backwards. He took me to the edge of the clearing, and then he said, "You must go home to your mother now." And I was yet again a little child sucking my thumb, and I was going backwards and backwards into my body, and woke up, and the storm was finished. And I got off the bed, and I ran up to my mother, and I said to my mother, Mommy, I'm so sorry. I've been gone for 3 days.
And what did she say?
She said, "Darling, you've been asleep on the bed for 10 minutes. And I'm like, no, I was with the black man. Well, she just said really, or something like that. And it was, and I tried to tell her what I remembered, which wasn't, I couldn't remember anything that the man taught me. So I just was saying, the man talked to me for a long time, for 3 days. Anyway, the years went by, and of course I became a medium, very well known in England. So she would come to some of the local churches when I did something nearby her, because she was a cripple. Basically, after one of the days that I'd done the service, and she was really interested, she said, "What were you doing? How do you do this trance work and stuff, And I said, "I've been doing it always." And then I brought up this story of of Zoroaster and how he was black. And she said, "You remember that?" And I said, "Yes." And then she said, "I couldn't understand how you could tell me you had seen a black man, because we lived in the white area and you had never seen literally a physical black man." And so that astounded her, and she kept that secret all those years and wondered. So I then explained it to her, and she said, I had no idea you had that skill, none at all.
Wow.
But you know, I just want to interject a little bit here. My mother,
Sure.
because she was very negative in many ways. Who wouldn't be surviving a war and being bombed every night? You know, can't even run to the shelters. So every night she thought this would be the end of us, you know, kind of thing. So after the war finished, Dad came back. He was post-traumatic stress disorder. Didn't call it then, but he was a major, and so he'd had to do a lot of things. That's another long story. And so they were not convivial or conducive to one another because both wanted one another to save one another and couldn't do it. So there's little me in the middle, you know. So she used to sit at the kitchen table with hot pots of tea and talk to herself. And it was always a one-sided conversation. And one day my mother caught me and my sister looking through the crack in the door laughing at her because they're thinking she's talking to herself, you know. But in reflection, I realized she was psychic. She was talking to someone in her head just like I do. And if she was talking out loud to them, you know, where, you know, it was a one-sided conversation. And so in those days, she hadn't been taught about psychic ability. So she used to go off and seek some medium, you know, or someone in those days. And I was always told, you know, like
that's interesting. So you would hear your mother talking, like I would hear my mother talking to herself, and I thought she's crazy. But then I would look in the room past her, and I'd see a transparent older woman, which now I think was her mother. She was talking to her deceased mother.
Yeah. And my grandma,
but she couldn't admit she was psychic because back then that was you weren't allowed to be psychic and Christian because they'd say you're talking to demons. So she was really conflicted. Yes.
Yeah, and my mother was, you know, as she got older and my father and mother didn't get along very well too. She would go and see mediums to find out. It sounds terrible, but am I going to be a widow? You know, kind of thing. And they were palmists on piers and gypsies and people like that. And you know, so by the time I was 21, I was fully developed as a medium. I could even, like, I don't do it now, I don't have time, but I used to sit down at the piano because I had piano lessons and try and play the music my teachers would give me, and then spirit would come and play in me, and I would make up music. And my mother would come in and she'd say, what were you playing? Because she'd interrupt me, so I'd lose it, you know, and she'd say, what were you just playing? Did your teacher teach you that? It was very complicated. And I'd look at her and say, no, it's just playing. But really, I was channeling. And the same with my artwork. You know, people would, in my schools and my education, they would give us a topic, something we had to draw, and I would just draw it perfectly because I had spirit consciousness in the way they worked with me. And I actually tested it in later years. When I was drawing people's spirit guides, because that was the end thing. People wanted to know what the spirit guides looked like in those days, which is kind of like today. People are doing photography where they get spirit faces in them. And they want proof that they have these guides, you know. And so I was drawing Samuel Pepys in his clothes. So he was perfect with his wig and everything and his pot belly and his waistcoat and everything. And the picture was he was feeding a dog, which was a poodle, which was actually my poodle that was on the other side. So in a way, it was a message to me. And I just said, look, I'd like to draw this poodle myself. And so I started to draw the head and shoulders. And I'm telling you, I must have erased it at least 5 times. I could not get the face and features of the animal at all. Just from my imagination. And then I just said, okay, help me draw it. And straight away, the whole body, everything, perfect. So, you know, I really proved to myself just how much, in many different, I just picked 2 or 3 things. There are many, many things I'm able to do with spirit in my head. Now, I have to go back to what I began the show with, which is, yes, I've also lived in physical lives where I've done those things as well in past lives. So one isn't just suddenly an artist. One has the DNA from the ancestors. We may have had an ancestor that was a famous artist or a painter or a musician or something. And so we can tap into it through the DNA to an ancestor's talent and bring them out in ourselves. I'll give you an example. I just saw one on television the other day where it's in modern times, where a mother had a daughter that she birthed, but in order to give her a baby, because she had no eggs, she had an egg donor. And her husband's sperm was put into the egg before and put in her womb, and she was birthed, and they gave the child the name of the egg donor because they wanted her to know the truth, how she was conceived. And so they had the name of the egg donor, and they decided all together as a family to invite the egg donor to come over and meet this daughter. And they're like two peas in a pod to look at. They found out that the girl was playing music and singing, fantastic voice, by the way, which is why she was on America's Got Talent. And they found out that the mother was also playing music and also was a singer. And they also found out that they only lived like 4 blocks away and they never met one another. And there is a special bond between this child and this egg mother. And the mother who birthed the child, there's a bond between the three of them that is uncannily, super duper, amazingly divine love. There's no part of them competing. They were absolutely, thoroughly, both these two mums, basically as proud as they could be of this daughter, and the daughter loving both mums. I mean, I was sitting there going, yes, that's what we need to see. That made me cry with the joy and the delight of unity. And they are model for us today. But we have not known this could happen. We've moved into this second spiritual age. So we're going to see more of that because, when I was 12 and Spirit told me that Mary was made outside of the womb and put in her womb by Joseph's sperm, and I told my mother and family, of course, people like that, they looked at me like I was evil, and my mother said, don't you tell anybody like that. That's going to get
Let's
you in a
slow
lot
that
of trouble.
down. Wait, that's a very important point. So say that again, how Mary was created?
Same as we do today, okay? You take the woman's egg and you take the man's sperm and you mix them in the PT dish and then you put them in the body. Only Spirit can break down that energy of that egg and the sperm, entwine them, and put them together as a fertilized zygote into the womb of Mary. They did that also with Jesus' cousin John the Baptist. It was all a plan.
So
everything's planned.
Sperm was it? It wasn't God's sperm. You're saying it was Joseph's sperm?
It was Joseph's sperm. Oh yes.
It was Joseph's sperm.
Joseph's sperm and her egg. They took them out of their bodies, put them together, and put it in her. And they did the same with Elizabeth. Okay? We've just learned to do it in
Elizabeth's
physical form now. Yeah, because Elizabeth was barren. She was too old to have a baby.
Right.
How do you think her womb became active? We can do all sorts of things.
I understand. There's the Bible is full of these artificial insemination stories.
I have one more I want to tell you about that, if I may. Can I just give you the second example?
Yeah, go ahead.
A Chinese or Japanese, I'm not sure which she was. She might have been. But anyway, the local hospital, wherever they were, said they wanted to have volunteers of women in their 40s who wanted to have a baby because, they were experimenting on this whole thing about being able to make women who could not have babies have babies. And so the Asian people look very young. So this woman turns up and she says she's 42 and she's one of those successes. She birthed a child. Afterwards, she admitted she was 62 and she hadn't had a period in 18 years. The body.
So how did they get her egg?
I don't know that part. I don't know whether if it was her egg or someone else's egg. But I can tell you, I'm 77. I know I still have my eggs because I feel the ovulation. Yeah,
how do you
think about that. Think about
do you
that
have
one.
Yeah. So do you have a period?
No, I don't have a womb. I had to have it removed because my last child was cesarean, and when they did the surgery, they sewed my bladder to my womb, and I had complications, so they had to go in and remove it, which I was quite happy to do because I had 4 sons and 2 miscarriages and an abortion. And I didn't want to have any more children. Yeah, so I know about abortions too. That's another whole story.
Yeah.
Any woman that briefly said, I have a book, Pro-Life, Pro-Choice, Pro-Spirit, and it explains it all in there rather than go into it. But here, I'd like to move it over back to what we started with, which is the cellular-neuro-muscular-memory, okay? Our spirit, before we come into the body, in the first trimester, towards just before the quickening, that's when the woman feels those little butterfly feelings in her belly, down where the womb is, very small. The spirit of the person to be in there will inspect the baby that is growing. And the baby is like a tadpole with a tail kind of losing the tail, that shape, coming to be a form. The person's going to be in there, as indeed I did, are looking at the body we're going to take up. And if there's anything not right with it, and we definitely want to come into that body at that time, we as spirit entities have the same ability to correct the deforms or the cellular memory of the DNA. We can change it. And I was outside of my mother as a man looking at her womb and me in there, which was to be me. And there was a little bit I had to change on the DNA because I needed to know that I was going to channel all this spiritual energy. I can't prove it. I can only tell you it's my truth. And there are probably thousands of other women today listening to this who will say, yeah, well, I felt that, or I did that, and then we'll get a congregation of people saying, yes, we all experienced it. Then people start to accept it. It's the 100th monkey, But the first one that says it, they're always they're stupid, So, I was one of the first ones as far as I was concerned at that time. And as I looked, I went, oh dear, it's a girl. I wanted to come in as a man. And but then I realized at the same moment that didn't matter, that my programming for this was more important than wanting to just be a man, because I was tied into so many others in a soul group coming to this world to make changes to this world in awareness. And when I say others, not 2 or 3, thousands. So I just said, okay, did whatever I needed to do, then left, and then came back. I don't remember sinking into it, but I know that my second look on it was the baby was now formed and it was ready, and she was coming into, say, 3 and a bit months. So I remember that now it's time. But I didn't stay in. I was often coming out. And when it was the birthing time, that was given me later when I was an adult. I was taken back into the oneness by my spirit guides to see it. And so I arrived, still male, and went into the womb. And I said, my last spirit words were, now it begins. And I went into the body, into the womb, and then the next thing I knew, I could feel pressure on my head and light. And then the next memory I had was lying in this crib, sort of wiggling my hands and arms, having no control whatsoever with them, trying to touch my spirit guide sister, Teresa, who was bonded with me from birth and who actually got me through all my horror stories into being a medium. She was my main contact that I was able to talk to and hear all the time. And now she's so a part of me, I hardly ever really still hear her because I am her, she is me, oneness. Okay. And
so
as you evolve, before
you came in and you were doing that analysis about the body, where were you? What was that realm like?
I was in the oneness. I was in the astral. I was in the fifth plane of ascension.
What is that like?
The fifth. We have human form, or we can change our form, rather like Lemuria, as people think about it. We can flip through different lives we've had. We can connect with thousands of minds at once. We can have our homes in the etheric and the ethers. We have a lot of the energy like stones and crystals, which is why I've had them my whole life in my life. We move, we change. There's different levels within the fifth plane. This is the fourth plane where we are now. Okay, and so we can have different levels of evolution here. We've got people living, in the forests who live off monkeys and don't even know the first thing about technology or phones, or they see planes fly over and they think they're large, noisy birds. To people who are so evolved they've gone to the moon and back. So we have different levels of evolution here, same as we have different types of lands and deserts and so on. It's the same there. We have different things there, and we all return to the level that we're bound to, when we pass on.
Right.
And so if we're negative, if we're like a drunken boozer, it doesn't mean that we are not ascended. We could be here, doing that or killing people to shake up the world so we change. And it takes, you're going to be amazed here. I finished my book, Donald Trump, The Enigma of Society.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
And
you want to talk about that now?
Well, I just wanted to point out here that it's going to be hard for you to imagine this, but he is an ascended being. And all the mixed up, crazy stuff he says is exactly what he came to do, so that we would find new ways to function. And it's not just happening here. We got, like, in England, because I know that, my own ex-country, Teresa just stepped down because she did what she came to do, which was pull them out of Brexit. But she's not the one to rebuild London or England or anything. Same with Italy. Italy lost their money. Spain lost their money. They're rebuilding right now. Same with Malaysia. Same with what Donald did going over to Korea. It doesn't look like he's done much, but he's sown the seeds. And the seeds are sown in the minds of the Koreans. So let's see what they do. So this is seeding time. We're here to spread seeds, and you in your own way, and your husband in his way. It doesn't matter what way it is, as long as a way is found. And, it is through the spirit, it is through the emotions, it is through the understanding. The deity of consciousness comes through us all. So God is coming through us all. So if, that guy that just unfortunately shot all those people in the place where he was working 3 days ago now, it's a terrible thing. You're like, how could anyone do that? We needed him to do that for us to stop and say, we've got to stop that happening. We've got to heal people's minds. We've got to heal people's hearts. We've got to understand we need better insurance. We've got to understand whatever you want, you go in any direction.
Whatever it is, it's a catalyst. So,
yeah. Yeah. So I'm
But
at
is
the point
it
in my
okay?
life where I can.
Are you saying that it's okay that the catalyst is the catalyst in that way, or can a catalyst be a catalyst in a different way? Does it always have to be so?
It has to have controversy.
Abrupt and.
It must
Yeah.
come from controversy. So, let's go to another. Martin Luther King. He said, we've got to do this the quiet way, right? We're doing a march. And there were people trying to fight them and battle with them, and ultimately someone shot him. Same with Gandhi.
Right.
You're going to find this everywhere you look, all over the world. These things go on in parallel times so that this world can evolve. And it's going on the same in other universes we don't even know where they exist, in terms of us here on Earth. But we're all evolving in the dynamics of the universe. So, if I go into the great overview, like I'm now God, I've sent my forces out to the world that have been scattered through the universes of all that exist in the cosmos. And I've had so much, I've absorbed so much by the experiment as an individual being, I'm now calling them all home. And so I'm sending an energy throughout the cosmos to ascend, to awaken, to be aware, to understand, to know the existence is not of self, but of the whole. And so right now we've got human beings mixing with aliens. We've had it going on for eons of time. As I was saying to one of my patients the other day, we are biogenetically engineered robots. Our bodies are the home
So Battlestar Galactica was right. Battlestar Galactica was right.
Without
we are clones. We are cyborgs.
Yeah, without our spirit, we're dead. We can't work. We can't do anything. It's our spirits working it. Okay. So
this makes sense because I've had people come on and say that they've seen spaceships and the spaceships are sentient. So consciousness can be everywhere.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't have to be.
I'm sorry, you get me excited and I keep talking over the top of you, and I shouldn't. I'm naughty. But that's why I so enjoyed writing the Trump book, because what you get in the beginning with the Trump book is the archangels are saying how they are encoded, okay, with the aspects that are the soul structure coding, and how they in turn created more forms with the soul structure coding, because down through the descension, the correlation of the divine essence had to be repeated and repeated as it was separated and separated and separated throughout the universes of all that is in the consciousness of God. So who is God? Well, the ultimate thing is God is just energy, and it needs constant movement. And it doesn't matter whether we're a being with 49 eyes or one, as long as we're functioning, because that we are the fuel to its life. We are the seed of its life. We are, all that is. And then I was going beyond that into, okay, so there's a God. How many others are there? Because, I was thinking about the Roman gods, the Greek gods that we started off with, of Alexander. And where does all this consciousness come from? Well, of course there are other gods. And of course those other gods also have soul coding. It's infinity.
Right.
We can't know the ultimate thing, not from our perspective anyway. But if you can hold the idea that we are one blob in the whole of everything, you start to realize how thinly we are.
Right.
We are
the blob.
Our one little blob is vital to the whole. And if we're not there, and now I'm going to make the analogy of an old-fashioned fob watch with all the different cogs, if that one tiny little cog was missing, we got no sense of time. We got no sense of existence. no sense of a purpose or a reason to even function because we're switched off. So when a mother, and this is so vital to women, I wish people would listen, especially I know because I've been through it all. When you're having a baby in the beginning and you have the father's seed who has made the zygote, in other words, it's in your womb, it's now sitting in your womb growing. It is an extension of yourself, just like a cancerous tumor. The mother's energy puts life, their own life, into that form, and they grow the baby as a carbon copy of themselves. The brain knows how to do that. The DNA genes and all that comes into play as the genome is separated. And at the same time, all the coding through the DNA of the ancestors that we've had is growing in the cellular-neuro-muscular-memory through the brain of that baby that's growing, and is stimulated by the spirit when it enters the body at the quickening. So if you go and have an abortion before the quickening, you are literally having in the way of explaining it, surgery to remove a growth. Okay?
Because
it's not murder.
The soul's not there yet. Right.
Soul's not
now,
there.
I had an idea. I had a download. I get downloads, too. And the download was saying, well, if people wanted to take that fetus, so say they're pro-lifers, and if they wanted to take that fetus and grow it into their womb, which we know surrogate wombs are possible, that might be a solution for some people who really want to preserve that soul. Or is that limited to is that kind of soul right limited to the soul that was going to animate that fetus?
No, because you see, if the woman has decided, as indeed I did on that occasion because I was too young and so on, and in those days there was no social support for women who had babies, and it was a disgrace and disgusting and so on, and I was a naughty girl because I had sex when I was 18, you know.
Right, yes.
12. But anyway, I was really in love with my boyfriend, but we were too young. And so, I had to do it illegally, and I admit it in the book. But I knew. Now, the second time when I also was raped, I'm like, Sister Teresa, where are you? Sister Teresa, where, help me. What do I do now? And no voice from her, nothing. And then this girl, we needed a new flatmate, apartment mate. So we put an ad out, and this girl turned up, and we liked her, and so she moved in. And I said to her, I'm missing my monthly, and blah, 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 blah. And I think because I got date raped, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't date rape, actually. The truth was, it was my best friend's husband who raped me. And I could tell her, and I had to get rid of it because there was no way. And also he was Indian, and in those days mixed marriages weren't accepted, blah, blah, blah. And I had to give it away, and I knew I couldn't do that. And I'm thinking, I have to get rid of this, and so my second month came, and no seeing, and I told her, and she said, I can help you. And she went away, and she came back with some pills, which did the trick. So after that was done, there's Sister Teresa in my head. I said, where were you? She said, in you. I said, what do you mean in me? She said, I had to come in you to help you lose the baby. So she took residence and then left. Now, there are, because I've come up to the quickening time, there are spirits that will do that. And they're spirit guides because they want to get into your head, they want to get into your heart, they want to be totally bonded with you because they're going to walk through you in your life. I would say right now, if I had to itemize everyone I've ever channeled, I'm probably about 50 people in my body.
Wow.
Okay? No, seriously. Those who channel.
I understand,
Yeah. And I use the example in my book, in my journey into the Way to Oneness Revisited, that's rewritten now. Journey into an Unknown World, the Way chapter 1 is revisited. When you get to, it explains all of the soul structure coding and the higher realms and psychic ability and all the different, it's got everything. It's a compendium of everything in it that I wrote when I was 40 that went into East Berlin, and they sold 12,000 copies because they'd had no religious books whatsoever of any kind. So that was wonderful for me. But more importantly, what it says at the end is that when Jesus was on the cross and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That was Michael. That was my Archangel Michael. He had to come into embodiment at the last minute. He was the last soul to be down on earth. All the people who were saying kill him or save him, all the people of the 12 were in the drama, all the families of the 12 were in the drama, and so on. Just start to realize just how many thousands of people were involved in that soul lesson of divine essence from Michael and the oneness, that we are not here to kill under a wrathful God. We are here to love under a loving God. And that was what the first dawning of the true spiritual age, the first spiritual age. And that's why people saw... Okay, let me just finish though. That's why people saw Jesus all over the world. There was many, many different spirits appearing as Jesus all over the world. And we can take on the appearance of one another in the spirit world. I could look like you in the spirit world. You could look like me.
So when you said that Joseph was the biological father of Jesus, what enabled Jesus to have so many kind of magical abilities that he was manifesting fish and loaves out of?
He didn't have anything. Sorry, he didn't have anything different from what we have today. He was just way ahead of his time. As healers now, like I just had someone who had a stroke and they're walking around with a limp arm and the leg was flopping around. And now that leg he can walk strongly on it, and he can now make his fingers, he's squeezing a ball, which before the hammers used lift. You might say, wow, she's done a miracle. I'll say, no, I've taught him how to use a different part of his brain, and I've changed the energies in his body by doing the crystal acupuncture and the telegram therapy, and I've counseled him and I've hypnotized him to know that he can be better and not be a vegetable. This is something many, many people can do right now. And we don't say, hey, I'm a miracle worker. We say, I work with the oneness. I work with my spirit guides. Well, it was the same for Jesus in those times. And he didn't do a lot of the miracles that was said because a lot of it was hearsay. Because people would sit with him and they'd hear what he was saying and they'd take it into their heart and soul and they'd let go of their negativity, and then they would heal naturally, because in those days there wasn't any gases coming from planes in the sky and, genetically engineered animals or whatever we've got, to poison us. So once you remove the negativity, the fear, pain, anger, and guilt of, whatever it was you were going through at the times, then your body will start healing. In fact, one of the 12 got bitten by, after Jesus was gone, one of the 12 got bitten by a snake, the viper kind of snake. And there's no way, you're going to die. And he said, leave me alone. I will heal. I'll see you in the morning. And he went in his tent. And he spent 2 days, actually. And he came out alive. What did he do? His biogenetic engineering of his system fought the poison, embraced the poison, neutralized the poison, and he was no longer poisoned. And he urinated it out. We can do that too. But we can't do it while people are putting, this poison in us. When I got Parkinson's disease, which in my late 30s, I actually was walking down the street and I completely locked up. I couldn't walk. I stood looking at a street window thinking, what the hell's happened to me? I'm shaking from head to foot. My hips are tight. I can't do anything. And my neck's flopping around like nobody's business. And I stood there breathing deep. I stood there breathing deeply, waiting, and I just said, God, what is happening to me? And I've heard the voice of God on enough through my life. He said, awaken to your fear, pain, anger, and guilt, and let God know, meaning him, that you have accepted him. And what happened was I had 2 more of those events. I had some pills that were given to me to treat Parkinson's disease, which actually were, believe it or not, heroin derivative based. I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
And they would stop me shaking, and then it would wear off. And I think, I need another pill. And over 3 weeks, I OD'd. And then the next thing I know, I was dead. And I was saying to Spirit, I can't live with you. I can't stay here. I can't live with this kind of shit. I was so negative then. And I won't go into my whole history. It was awful. And I was very negative. I did full pain, anger, the whole lot. Lost full pain, full anger, full guilt, full, the whole caboodle. And they went, well, okay, if you really want to leave. And then at that moment, I didn't know about the guilt at that time till then. At that moment, this wave of guilt came up that I was letting the team down. And that I was going to be letting all the humans on Earth I was going to meet, I was going to let them down because I wouldn't be here. And so in that moment, I said, you've got to give me something to live by, something, I've got to have something. I can't live like this. And they said, we promise we will. Well, a short version of that, fast forward a few months, I went back to my job. And my boss, I was producing Yoga Today magazine, and my boss said, we're going to take yoga teachers to India. And I went, I'm going. Couldn't afford it. I called my ex, I was separated from him then at that time, and I said, can I get in debt? Because we had a lot of debt. And I need to go to India. And he said yes, and I went. And it wasn't until I got up to the mountains in Rishikesh, which is 12,000 feet up in the Himalayas, and there was the most spiritual ashram. I went to many, and I'll tell you, 90% of them are not. They're not gurus. They're not gods. They're little empires. So I got there, and these people were the real deal. And I'm fast forwarding. People can read my book, my journey into the oneness, if they really want to know more. But I was sitting out on this little tiny balcony with these 2 wise people. And the elder said, looked across, leaned over a bit and said, Master, who are you? I'm like, what? And the bottom line is the years where I made all the usual proverbial excuses. I'm a seeker of truth and stuff. But I used it as a thing in my talks at Mind, Body, and Spirit things. I'd say things like, I'm a master. And I'd watch all these people's hands go up. Master of who? What life do you have? Whatever at the times. And I just let them do that. And then I said, okay, I'll give you the answer. I'm master of myself. And I don't, it's like, big letdown in those days. But now you see today, people know that lesson. They know they cannot rely for someone else to save them. They must save themselves. They must love themselves. They must love what they do. They must be at peace with what they do. And if Tom, Dick, and Harry comes along and says, no, you have to do it my way, they have the power to just say, I know you want your way. I honor your way. Goodbye. I'm going. And walk away. We don't have to fight with guns. We don't have to invade someone else's land. Let them sort themselves out. And that's part of what comes out in this book that Spirit wrote through me, that I'm going to get out in the market. And it's going to be called, unless the publishers change it, it's Donald Trump, The Enigma of Society. Hear that lower part. He's not really the enigma. It's our enigma that we have in our society of the way we contemplate, blame and shame and judge and do all this stuff instead of stopping and going, what is the problem? It's me. I need to fix me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful perspective. I hope that it translates well so people get it. A lot of these things are over most people's heads that are continually programmed by things like Fox News and, the media. So, and that's the dilemma. How do we, I think if we all got it, it would just dissolve. It's, like the curtain coming down on the Wizard of Oz, right?
Well,
you see the wizards there.
It will dissolve. It will dissolve because, he'll do his end, and then when he's done, someone else will come along. Meanwhile, you see, he's doing what he's doing because he's making people think about, well, what's the alternative? And those people will rise up, and they'll do what they'll do, and then eventually we'll rewrite the rules, whatever that will be, whoever decides. It's none of my business. I don't have any concept of what it should or shouldn't be. But there are people who are going to be genetically programmed through their ancestors to come down into embodiment and do their part in rebuilding this world. And we'll be up there again looking down going, oh, yeah, good, they're carrying on the work we started. And,
so do you think that we're going to make it through? I mean, we're looking at the point, at this point in history, there's people saying that we've got 10, maybe 15 years to turn things around, and it gets to the point of no return where the environment is no longer reversible. I don't really believe that, but that's one of the things that's being put out there. What about the nuclear potential of the, Big Bang and blowing us up and even bigger than when you were born? Are you able to see down the timeline? Are we be able to take that tool of, because time is an illusion, right? So we're actually still looking at our ancestors before we came in, and we're here, and then we're in the future. Are you able to use this soul structure coding psychic way that you can view existence to go forward in time and see? Because I've seen the timelines. I've seen the potentialities. I was shown 24 of them, major ones, and they said there's endless. There's as many timelines as there are people to contemplate timelines, as beings that are conscious. But they said these are the ones that are closely related to what I was, where I was. I mean, I was 4. We're talking about 1958, but I'm more than a human being that's 4, right? I am my total potential and my eternal self. So I was like you said before. You went through the time, and you were sucking your thumb, and then you were an adult, and back and forth. That's how it really is. We are simultaneously all these in our own human form, and additionally on other planets and other bodies and other forms and dimensions and vibratory frequencies. We try to wrap your head around that one, right? But when you think that you are oneness, you are everything, you are all there ever is, was, and ever will be, and we're all one. We all truly are one. And if you kill somebody else, you're killing yourself. Then maybe there's some way that we can use what you're saying here in the show. And I love what you're saying, by the way. I'm so excited.
I just knocked my water over.
What's that?
Sorry, I just knocked my water over. It's all right. It went all over the floor. It's not at the end of the world. Okay, carry on.
Okay. So I was just asking about future pacing. I remember this movie when I was a kid I saw with Barbara Streisand. It was called On a Clear Day We Can See Forever. Did you ever see it? If you haven't, watch it again. It's just wonderful.
I saw it.
And
yes, it's
so
wonderful.
She saw her future lives. And so she was in love with this man in this life, but it wasn't going to work. But he took her to her future life, and they were, together and had children and all kinds of stuff. So what do you think is going to happen? So we have Trump here in this now as a catalyst for this major change. And I'm guessing, and just tell me what you think, that we needed it. It's like we needed a kick in the butt, that we were just doing the same old.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question at a very down-to-earth, everyday level, okay? The older generations, which is my generation, in general, around the world, whoever they may be, are conditioned from their ancestors to do the same thing over and over again. So for example, class distinctions, if we go back even further, slavery or whatever it is in some way, right? And so as the generations have come forward in everyday self, they've made the older generations, my generations, made themselves slaves to their beliefs. So even if there was no one enslaving them, you know, we've always done it this way, so we've always got to keep on doing it this way, you know. Now, when you look at anybody under 50, okay, our kids, they're saying, why are we stuck in this rut? Why are we doing this the same? We don't want that. Now, their babies are coming and going, oh, let's just change everything. So that's 3 generations we're looking at where we've gone from stuck in the mud to let's rise up and change things. Now, if we go back to our ancestry in America and our forefathers who sat down, you know, I'm talking about the first 3 presidents, that kind of thing, they were doing the best they could think of from their point of view about how they saw more visitors coming to live in this country. Now, do you think they had any idea how many 7 billion of us would look like? Of course not. There wasn't 7 billion people living on this planet at that time. It was only millions. And again, there was no sense of they were going to have millions of those people coming here. You know, it was like each country was too busy trying to survive the wars that they'd just been through. So no, they were trying to hold on to what was. So it takes a crisis to make people sit up and say, we've got to change that. And so, in a way, Donald's doing a good job being a crisis person. He's saying, I see what's wrong, you know. But to us, old folks, what? You know, we've always done it this way and this way. Now, he's not going to have the right ways. He's not meant to have necessarily the right ways. His job is to make us say, well, what if? Perhaps, might be, could be. And that's what the 40, 50-year-olds are doing, okay? They're coming out and saying, I'll put myself up for president, or I want to be head of finance, or I want to come up with a new idea how to, you know, feed everybody or whatever. And their kids, like my grandchildren, they're like one of them, I just said to her, what do you want to be? This was 2 years ago. She says, I want to be a mortician. She was watching Zombies, or, you know, that show on TV. I said, how can you watch that horrible stuff? That's how I found out, I want to be a mortician. I want to be able to look at anything and everything. And then I met her again over here. She came over to visit her cousins. And I said to her, okay, on the phone, I said, are you still going to be a mortician? She said, oh, no. I said, what do you want to be now? She said, I want to clean up the oceans and the waters and the lakes. Then my husband's granddaughter, asked her, what do you want to be? And she said, I'm going into cleanliness and this and that. I said, what of? He said, water. Now, think about this. We had a movie where there was only water on this planet and everybody had to live on water. These are the symbols that the older generations worked with without knowing that, yes, water is going to be an issue if we don't clean up the oceans. And I'm going to put it out here because I'm not the sort of person that says I'm going to keep stuff. When I was in Japan, they had the terrible earthquake and so on. You saw how the water came in and everything. There was no boundaries to stop the water coming in. What I came up with, maybe it's spirit in my head, but it was so clear. I had the vision of it. Rebar, okay, put in like a entwined, you know, like a what's that saying? You saying something? Rebar across, backwards and forwards. You make a cube-like shape of rebar, and then you melt all the plastic down that they pull out of the ocean, whatever they do chemically, and they pour it into molds with the rebar, and you've got big blocks. Now, plastic never dissolves, so you've got these big bricks, and then you build plastic walls with the rebar in there, and they're all bolted together. You can build them as high as you can, and you've got a use for plastic. How about that for a idea?
Yay, I like that. That's good.
I don't know where
Plastic
to go with
walls.
it. And I'm plastic walls with rebar inside that build houses eventually, all sorts of things with them. Because they'll have the metal inside. Yeah. How do I tell someone besides you and me and everybody who listen to the show? Anyone who is listening who knows how to pattern it and get it going, yeah, I'd give it to the world for it, But that's the other thing, you see. We have to watch. If we do get someone who wants to do it, we need that money to go back to the reader people to build the health and build the farms and whatever, not in some person's pocket,
Oh,
so
I agree. I got a download that said we need to cap personal wealth. Nobody needs to have billions and billions. No one person needs to have billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the intention of money in the first place. And hoarding is a mental illness. So money was created as a medium of exchange, not for someone to because by hoarding they get power and control. And it wasn't meant as a control mechanism. It was meant to be in service for humanity.
Yeah, but they don't really have power and control. They think they have, but what they're actually doing, think about it, the money controls them. The belongings controls you. It's like I've got 10 chairs I'm looking at. If I value those chairs, I'm going to keep them forever, and therefore I have to pay some security guy to come and watch them while I'm gone, and then I have to, get people to pay to use them because they're valuable to me. Well, no, cost of living goes up when the more you got, the more you need to spend. So we need to learn to live simply. We don't need 900 billion technical bits of equipment and whatever. So when you asked me, going back, keeping you on track with cellular-neuro-muscular memory, okay, when you learn to type, i.e. on a computer, you were thinking where's B, where's C, and so on, and now you know it so well that you just type that word without even thinking about where is it, okay?
Right.
But as we get older, our brains don't process so fast. We start becoming dyslexic, and I'm terrible. Yeah, I've always been dyslexic.
Oh no, erases.
Yeah, everybody used to say to me, "We're going to dance off to the right," and I know all the steps, and I go off to the left. And it's frustrating, but there's different types of dyslexia. There are people way good with numbers that can't do letters. There's people way good with letters can't do numbers. There are people who can only bend their bodies in certain ways because it's the programming. And I'm coming right back to the cellular-neuromuscular memory. It all is controlled by the brain. Without your brain, you can't do anything. And without your brain, which is your central core, where your spirit organizes you to do whatever you want to do. So your crown chakra is where your spirit is most active, controlling the muscles, the nerves, everything in your body. Your bioengineer, remember I said that, every part of your body. And if your thoughts are all about consciousness of how many chairs do I have and how much does it cost, your body's going to break down because that's all you can do is move chairs around, as it were. But if you can go into your subconscious in an alpha state or a theta state, which is even deep subconscious, you're going to pick up your spirit self, and your spirit self is going to say, I don't like those chairs. I'll give them to a charity. And, oh, look, there's someone over there who's giving me a new chair, and I didn't even look for one. And it's better than the ones I gave away. And I'm using an example. It actually happened to me. I gave a sofa away, and someone else gave me a much better chair. So, things happen, and you have to trust that in the oneness, that the more you listen to your spirit self and how it controls your body, the more it's going to heal your body. And the more you listen to your conversations around with people, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to hear. And my problem is I've got so much knowledge given to me by the oneness that when people ask me a question, I could talk for hours, as you can see, on that one subject. So I've had to learn to pull myself back to the root. So I'm coming back to the root here of cellular-neuromuscular memory and say, when you're a child and you're in school and you want to go party and you put up your hand, you're 4 years old, and teacher doesn't notice it or she ignores you and you feel you're going to mess yourself, you don't realize you're making a program. Years and years go by and you're, say, 50 and you're reaching up to the top cupboard and you're trying to get a box out of the cupboard and all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I've got to go to it. And you rush in and you think, I just went. How come I want to go again? And you do a dribble. You know, it's memory. You run a memory that you're reaching out your arm. It's the same as reaching out your arm to ask permission. So what the message then is, what are you giving your permission to yourself to do? You have to think like that. Now, it might be that as you're reaching out to the cupboard, as the example, you are thinking, I really like to go to the movies, but, you know, I've got this and that, and I can't, and so and so and so and so. And you're making all these excuses. And what you're really saying is, forget all that. Give yourself permission to go to the movie and to see it. See what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Does that make it,
yes.
Does that make it clear? Yeah. So when I look at someone who's ill, like cancer or MS or MD or whatever, I'm looking at the way they're processing this soul coding, which I haven't gone into too much because it's quite a deep thing. And I do people's reading for them. It takes 2 hours. I am expensive. By some people's models, I'm not. But for my local town here, they want a reading for $20. I can't do it. Wow. I don't have enough time. So I rely on people who really are serious, who want it. So if someone comes to me for $20, I'll give them their archetype, which might be a warrior, a slave, or an artisan, or a priest, or you know, those kinds of things, and give a little bit of insight into what that means. But if someone wants the whole soul coding, like I've just got a client who's got a son that's going through some issues, and in order to save that person and help that person, I have to go into their soul structure coding in their ancestors to look at slavery going back several generations. And these things are important. And a lot of us don't know that we have this in us. And, you know, for me, when I was writing the Donald Trump book, I was like, oh, my God, I've only gone back to 1700s with him. Mine goes back to 1066 and then over to France. You know, what have I got to bring? So it was like also for me a dumping of my ancestors, of some of the deep-seated beliefs that I had that I didn't know I had, that came to the surface in me. And so that's what we have to do right now for everyone. We need to start realizing we are the summation of our ancestors. So you went back to
1066. Why is that? That was so.
Yeah.
Is that Charlemagne or something?
It was the Battle of Hastings, and the French came over and conquered us in Britain, and the family name then was Depolge. Spelled Polge, DE space Polge, and the Brits couldn't say it. So you know, all these foreigners turned up, like Robertson, Johnson, Allison. You know, it means the son of Ali or the son of Robert, or the son of. Well, mine was Pogson. My maiden name was Pogson because they couldn't say Depose because they weren't French, so they, you know, cut it back to Pog, and then Pogson. That's how a lot of the British names emerged because of people came over there. And the reason I know my ancestry is because my grandfather was a very well-known man too, founded the Dowsing Association of Great Britain, was a dowser in India and found all the wells for them over there for the Indian government. In the 1800s and something. And he made a point of investigating our ancestry. He even found a castle with our crest on it, you know, the rampant stag. really stank.
Uh-huh.
He took me to the castle, and the keep was still there, and it stank of the water was going off, because it was drying out and stuff. And so I said the wrong word, but it's a rampant stag, with vigilante at hardy, watchful and strong underneath. And I had that drilled into my brain. And it's like, you've got to be alert. You've got to watch everything. You've got to know everything that's happening. And you've got to be strong and, never flake out. Well, it sounds terrible, but I needed that because being a psychic, I had to be strong and I had to be alert. And I had to understand what was going on with me. Otherwise, people were going to cast me down, So I'm making that point because I want to say the ancestry is important, And some of these people I work with, because I'm in America, have ancestry. They've been slaves. They've been pulled out of their country, And so it's important that they understand that was there for a reason. That was part of the oversoul of populating this country with the freedom of mankind. But we've abused freedom. We don't know what freedom is, So
how could we abuse freedom? That's a weird thing to say. How do we abuse freedom?
I'll give you A, B, and C if you do X, Y, and C for me. I'll help you if you help me. It comes at a price.
Right.
That's not freedom.
Oh, okay.
Freedom is, let me help you. Thank you. Bye-bye. And we pass it on. Pay it forward if you like, or share it around us.
Right.
Then we have unity. And if we don't understand something, instead of immediately insisting we know better and it's my way is the best way, we should stop and say, please explain your way so that I can think about it. And then my freedom is, I've thought about it. I can't work with it yet, but I'll carry it with me. Maybe I'll come back. But meanwhile, I'm saying no. Choice to be who you want to be without fighting for it. And the person who's hearing you say that is saying, it's okay. When you're ready, I'll be there. If it's not me, it'll be someone else. Now, metaphysical people say that all the time. But the average person who carries a gun or, likes to drink beer and do marijuana or drugs or whatever, they don't know that. They haven't learned that. Now, you might say, why are they here then? Well, we need them in order for us to realize what we've just said, that, hey, it's okay for you to be drunk. I'll go away. If you kill yourself, I'll go away still because it's your choice. I won't interfere. I mean, I know of certain circumstances where one person was constantly controlled by the Israeli Jewish ideas, and they wanted to become a Christian. And the short term of that story is I couldn't help, so I took them back home. Father sent them over to Israel, where they threw themselves off a balcony and today cannot walk. I couldn't stop that. Well, see, it wasn't my journey; it was his.
No,
and
his, yeah.
These things happen, and you know. And you ask me now, going forward, what about bombs in the future? I have seen one more going off. Okay, I don't know where. I don't want to know where. The same as I knew the two towers would come down in 1985 when I was up there, and I saw two planes in the sky, but I misinterpreted it. I said, well, whatever's happening, someone's safe because there's two planes in the sky. And then I said to my husband, are planes allowed to fly that close to those buildings? He said, no. So I said, well, maybe it's because of what, psychics are saying, that the flood's going to come over Maine and fill up the Great Lakes, and, that's why they're crumbling or something. But when I was up there, the first thing I said is, these buildings are not safe. I was shaking from head to foot. I felt the girders were not good enough and so on. So, that was part of it too. There's still people saying that, the government set it up, but they didn't. The government did not set that up. But you can't tell people, they want to think what they want to think. You've got to let them think them. But I know, because I had that vision, that it was not set up by by anyone in America. It was definitely set up by those people who were, wanting to get rid of it. But, it taught us a lesson. It taught us, you're not so supreme after all. Come down to earth and think with realism. And so we're going to have to do that. We've got to start being real about everything and sensible. And Red Cloud, he came through. It's in the back of my book. He came through me and said, America should be proud to be the first to go to the moon. So in the same way, America should be proud to be the first to show a country that is completely united and rebuild the country that all are equal. We haven't learned that yet. We still got people who are saying, I'm white and you're black. God knows why. I mean, they should have learned by now. It doesn't matter what color your skin is,
Right.
And I mean, the black, and then they congregate. The black people or the different races, they congregate in these areas, and they don't bother to speak the language or go outside of their religion or stuff. We need integration here. We need to say, hey, let's take the kids from New York and put them in school in, California, just for a while, for a year, so they can get to see how people think in different states. I mean, I've never been to some of the states. I've been to about 12 of the states now, and I can tell you, as being a foreigner coming here, I saw great differences in each of the states, just in the people and the way they thought.
Right.
We need to know how all these different people think in order to integrate. And the only way it's going to happen is we, the people, voice what we are, not in anger, but in sharing our hobbies, our skills, our working together as a force, like to clean up the oceans or whatever. We need to all be in it together. And it has nothing to do with guns or knives or anything like that. And we have to let our grandchildren's generation do that and their children do that. So how long do I see answering your question? 100 years? So, we've got to see a few of us die before that happens. But 200 years to really understand unity on this planet. In fact, 200 years. But another, to answer your question, was...
Well, my question was, are we going to survive it to get to that point?
Yes, mankind will survive. We always will. The same as we survived 2 world wars. Millions of men got killed and women or whatever bombed in homes and places.
Oh, yeah, millions.
Look how they flattened Berlin. I mean, I don't think anybody survived there.
Well, as soon as the war was over, everybody started breeding again, and we replaced them in one generation. So, because that's like a subconscious thing that we almost annihilated ourselves. We better breed quick and replace ourselves. But we overdo it. Yeah.
Well,
so that's why we had the baby boom.
Well, we've had more baby booms before that. If you go back into the Noah time, and before that, this world was populated. There's a lot of people on it.
Right. Yes.
They're finding human bones now. They're different. They're not. The DNA is similar, but not the same. Now they're wondering what kind of humanoid we were. They found all these animals, of course, the bones of animals, but they're starting to understand that, people have been space people here. They're come and gone. They could escape. Maybe
they're still here.
Well,
they never left.
When I was, 23 or 4. I saw us so evolved that we are populating other planets. And I saw how it's done. It's like you're taking a sun and they're cooling it down, and then they're putting biochemical stuff into it that causes it to cool down. And then you get gases, liquids, gases become liquids. And then liquids form molten lava, and molten lava cools, and that forms rocks and stuff. And all in that is oxygen. And there's these they showed me years ago, these one cell, I was learning about amoebas and hydras when I was in school, about 10. And they showed me this one cell creature riding on rocks. And I didn't understand what it was until only last year. I watched a program where they were saying they found these one cell creatures that are coming in on meteorites that can travel through space. Yeah, I've waited all those years. I'm sitting there and I'm saying to Steve, leave it, getting all excited. And he's like, well, okay, you say so. So, I got a lot of stuff. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff when I was a child, and I told people, and they looked at me like I was insane. Our teacher had us stand in a corner. It's in my book, My Journey into the Oneness. Had us stand in one go, stand, lights all off in the room. And she had to twirl around with a flashlight, and she's asking us what's going on, and I'm just seeing the universe and all the things that, I tried to tell her, and she looked at me like, oh, yes, Margaret, but that's not the point of the class. The class is see how light makes a trail.
Right. So, no, it takes you into the cosmos. Yeah. So, I'm a liquid crystal child, and I didn't know that until I wrote my book, Discover Your Baby Spirit. So we have heroes, we have stars, we have indigo, we have crystal, we have liquid crystal. Each one has a different modality, but when you combine them, they're going to be a force to rebuild this world. And so what's a liquid crystal?
Liquid crystal child is like me. You've got an extra DNA strand, so you know strange and unusual things, and you feel and sense things. You're highly psychic, blah, blah, blah. Now we've got some that are coming in that have got 2 extra strands and the DNA activated. They're the ones who are singing and dancing and on stage like they're 10 and they're, or even 5 even, in like things like Mary's Got Talent. And
okay, those kids.
Sing like they're 24, right?
Isn't that amazing? How did that happen? Because
they're running.
Because when I opened my mouth to sing when I was 4, I sounded like I was 4. But when these kids open their mouths, they're 4, 5, 6 years old, and they sound like they're Aretha Franklin, a full mature adult voice.
Right, and that's
how did they do that?
Because the extra DNA strand is activated, that allows them to tap into the energies of the oneness, which allows them to tap into where they emotionally bond with someone who is able to work with them through their body at that young age as a mediumship level. So when
that makes sense, because I couldn't figure that out. It's like people don't sound like that in the 50s. The little kids don't sound like that in the 50s. But here we are in this generation, and you have these little 4-year-olds, and they're singing like Whitney Houston, Yeah.
So wait for another 2 generations. No, sorry, another 20 odd years. So another generation, you're going to have those ones that are just being born right now. They're born with their eyes open, wide awake right now, this century, this time. Wait till they're 20-year-old. They're going to have another strand activated. They're the ones that are going to come up with how to rebuild buildings so they don't collapse, like using plastic, like I said, with the rebar. They're the ones that are going to come up with, waste. By then we'll have integrated our species so much. I mean, you can get your DNA done now, and you can find out you've got red blood, black blood, purple blood, or whatever. I don't know what color it is, but
Right.
But I mean, it doesn't matter which country you come from. We're all got different species in us. I know I've got Japanese blood in me, and that was a hush-hush secret because someone was over there as a missionary in the days of when Japan was very Japanese, and one of the daughters had a little affair with the prince, and they had to get married, and it was Romeo and Juliet story, and they killed themselves, and the baby was passed over to some other missionaries who brought that baby back, who became my mother's father.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
You've got an interesting story. Well, we're running out of time here. I want to make sure we cover what you want to cover. We've got about 15 minutes.
I'd like to go back to the cellular neuromuscular memory, because I think it's very important for people who are sick. Okay. Think about how you walk, how your muscles move, and think about how you have had thousands and thousands of movements through your life that are all programmed into your brain to attach to an emotion. Now, if your emotion is, I'm a failure, or, I feel I'm never going to amount to anything, I'm an idiot, those kinds of thoughts, those are mental thoughts that have an emotion of give up, stop fighting, stop trying to be you. And I want to say to those people, don't fight yourself. Go inwardly. Dump those ideas, dump those thoughts, get in meditation. I actually make tapes for people to listen to that are personal to them. And time again, they come back and say to me, I can't believe it. I'm a different person. I'm positive now. So watching your body, watching your habits, even down to cleaning your teeth. We think while we're cleaning our teeth, oh, I've got to go somewhere and I've got to do something. I'm late. Get rid of all that stuff and just enjoy cleaning your teeth. Be in the moment, cleaning your teeth, and don't think about anything else. And that's an example for everything, no matter what it is. Be in the moment, completely yourself. And if someone enters your space, ask yourself, am I wanting to be open? Open up then. Open up your chakras. If not, close your chakras down. Just use your crown chakra. The crown chakra and your base chakra work together very well. They're like funnels that overlap through and open up your heart and your solar plexus. And that allows you to feel and think. What am I doing? Am I doing an old habit versus have I got a new idea? That's where we rationalize in the middle of our body. And we've got a spleen chakra that runs from left rear to right front rear sides. And that's your balancer, that's your seesaw. And I spend every night when I lay on my back, I say to myself, release all the negativity of the day. And I just watch my body dribble out negativity. And I move and twiddle a bit. So I'm moving my muscles. And sure enough, I'll click some bone or some ligament back in place. And then I'll say, okay, harmonize my lower self with my higher self by saying I am all that I am. And then I'll look at my spleen chakra and I'll visualize the seesaw and I'll make it so it's parallel to the earth. And then I close down and I go to sleep.
That's wonderful.
So, I advise anyone who hears this to do it. It's amazing how you get up in the morning, you feel ready to face the world. You might try it too.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say to the listeners that you don't know Margaret. I've met Margaret, and we've hung out for a long weekend, and she's amazing. Margaret, you were born when the World War II was on, so that will give an indication of how old she is. But that's not how old you are. You are young and spry and active and totally amazing. So you're inspiration for me and everybody who sees you. Like, this is what you can do. You're young, even though you've lived a long time.
Actually, I really appreciate you saying that, and I didn't really realize how I looked. I'm not a vain person or anything, but when Miles, remember Miles? What's his name? Let's give him a little push here.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Johnson.
Miles interviewed me, and he put up a video on his page, and when I watched it, he talked to me like you have for an hour and a half, and I was watching myself, and I have to admit, I watched it as anybody would, not as Margaret, no critiquing. I was drawn into what I was teaching there because it was all me and spirit talking, not just me. Mm-hmm. And that's how I am, and I love it. I love talking. So even while I've been with you, everything I said is us talking. Yeah, I can't help it.
Yeah, there's so many things that I would have said myself, but it's like it's coming
Mm.
Even though it may not have come from my conscious, it comes from my superconscious, right? So it comes from my awareness somewhere because it rings as truth, like you said earlier before. You can't just make it up. So if it's coming and you resonate with it, then it is a part of you. So what you're saying is I resonate with what you're saying, so it's a part of me already.
And I want to bring you
sense?
into and I want to bring you with that into the alien thing, because that's what you've been into for so long. That, my experience with the Greys being on the ships is real. It's not imagination, and I was blocked from it for many years. But once I learned to meditate and go inward and listen to spirit, different things, I was able to recall exactly all the things. And the thing I want to say to people is, the experiences that are listening, is everything that you believe was done to you that was hurting you was not physically done. It was all genetically stimulated into the cellular-neuro-muscular memory through your brain, using your own emotional fear, pain, anger, and guilt of things that have happened to you in your life, even down to a simple thing where you've fallen over and grazed your knee. But they would take that and put that in your mind as we're cutting open your knee, but you're actually feeling a memory of your grazed knee. And once I learned that and I understood that, they started to realize how telepathic I was and how psychic I was. I became someone that would go to the ships and help what you will call the hybrid children to learn to balance their emotions and their mind, as I teach here on Earth, to be able to harmonize what they feel and what they think. Because the Greys are very intellectual, and they've been studying our emotions for a long time. And because they are telepathic, they don't, they all know everything, just like I knew everything from spirit guides. So actually, they helped me evolve my psychic ability as well. Mm-hmm. And my hybrid, hate that, but her name's Kaya. She's on another planet now, and she's birthed 3 children. And I just heard from them last year. I think I told you that they came to me and said, "Congratulations, your grandmother," kind of thing. And I went, "Okay, great." And then they said, "But you don't understand. They're your eggs." And I went, "What?" No wonder I never had a daughter.
Wow!
But it's great, yeah, because she got ovaries, but they weren't functioning. They're still trying to harmonize the DNA and the genes in them, because when you mix species, you've got to have to look at every aspect, the biochemical aspect of the DNA and the RNA of human and their DNA. By the way, the Greys share our DNA. They have the same DNA, but it's just a little bit different. If you were to draw the DNA as a spider, I would say that they have 24 legs and we have 15.
So, how is it that they share our DNA? What's the story behind that?
Well, they were made the same as we were made.
So we have a common ancestor.
Yeah. It's the evolution. Yeah. And that's how the cosmos keeps going, and we make more planets, and they're cool, and we populate them. Then it dies, and we move on somewhere else and do it somewhere else and so on. They showed me that when I was in my teens. That was before Star
So are
Trek
they
even
humanoid? They're humanoids. They're not insectoids. Some people try to make them draconian or insectoid, but they're humanoid primarily, correct?
I personally I've never encountered any, from my world anyway, that I've been able to pull out or spirit guides have shown me. They had blood, the same as we have blood, but their blood is not red. Their blood is a sort of yellow color. So, it's a sort of, if I could really say it, a light yellowy ochre color. But when you look at it under the microscope, when you look at it under the microscope, you can see all the little biogenetic things that are similar to ours. That's why they can integrate their DNA with ours. That's why they can take our eggs and their sperm and mix it. You know, I'm not a scientist. I have no sense of anything. I can only tell you what they show me in my head or what they let me look down to see.
Yeah.
You know, or through their minds. You know.
Well, we're running out of time, Margaret. I want to give you a moment here we can do another show. I just want to give you a moment to tell everybody about your website and where you're going to be presenting, how they can reach you for private work. You can do private sessions wherever they live, right? You can do them on the internet.
Yes.
Using Skype or Zoom or something, or phone call.
Facebook one-on-one or Skype. I am looking for someone who'd like to work with me on Zoom because I'm not technical. And as you've heard by this whole conversation with you, I talk my face off. I cannot be, I've got too much stuff being downloaded while I'm talking. I can't help it.
Right.
So I need someone, who can watch the time like you're doing and who knows how to press buttons and say,
Well, we can do a Zoom session, but we got to go get our makeup and hair on. Hair done and makeup on. I was lazy today. It's like, no, we'll just do voice today. But I can help you with that. We can do that. Definitely want to help you. I have time.
I have an tip. Sorry, I haven't. I'm doing it again because my thoughts keep running. With Zoom, I want to teach. I don't want it to be an interview. I want to be able to say, take a topic.
Oh, it's real easy. It's real easy. I can teach you. And you don't have to pay attention to the gears the whole time, to the knobs. It's just real simple. I'll teach you. I do have to run, dear, so I'm going to
I know.
Go ahead and tell because I have to go to the bathroom to be honest with you. So if you want to just tell me the websites and everything, and then I'll put some exit music while it runs out the clock. So your website is
Sumari, www.sumari, SUMARIS center.com. A lot of people say Sumeris over here because of Sumerian. That's okay because that's probably where it came from. But I was British at the time when that spirit gave it to me. So that's that. And then just search my name, Margaret Rogers Van, because I come up everywhere.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to end today's show with Planet of Peace by my very dear friend, Jaya Earthchild, who was born in the UK and is now living in Australia after living 25 years in Maui. So love and blessings to you, Margaret, and take a listen to Planet of Peace. Thank you. I'm sorry I talk so much. I talk too much, I know, but thank you. Oh, you talk perfect. Let's see if this will work, though. Is it going to go? Come on, play. Here we go.
Shed the air since the dawn of time. No one takes a breath saying this one's mine. We share the sun, we share the seas. It's time to learn to share the land in peace. You who govern, choose to spend more on war than we can comprehend. We insist to share our wealth, food and water, home and health, teachers, trees and medicine. Then the time of true peace can begin. peace, planet of peace. You of every nation are family to me. I feel such constellation that you suffer while I walk free. I will do all that I can to help unite this family of woman, child, and man. The leaders of our nation, are they wise as well as strong, or boys in imitation, pointing Daddy's gun, threatening the future, endangering us all? The people of all nations are united and all war, for we are one human family, sharing one home, planet of peace.